starting out.
Good evening, everyone. I will go ahead and call the Arts and Culture Board meeting to order for May 9th, 2024. We do have quorum, although I don't even know if we need a quorum anymore, but we have one anyways. First thing on our agenda is City Council Liaison Report, and I'll turn it over to Andrea. No, there's news.
You scared her off. No, the South Metro Housing Options Board meets tonight, and Andrea could only pick one or the other, so this was her pleasure board, and I said I would come back so that she could do that one, but she enjoyed her time with all of you. And this, of course, is the most lovely one, so happy to be back and be as available as I can now to be City Council. How many of you have taken the Project Downtown survey? I've looked at that. A couple of you, okay. So I have a couple, there's a QR code here. We're looking at redoing the downtown. So there's 3 different options that kind of have been proposed, and we want your feedback. This is due Monday. It's gonna be the last round of reviews. So I'll pass one this way and one this way. So please just submit your feedback. We really want to have a good take on what our community wants the downtown to look like. And you as arts and culture board members too, we want your vision. Since a lot of it is going to be incorporating public art, I think, as well. So check that out. We also want some opinions on, we're thinking as a council of changing some of our marijuana regulations. We have 4 licenses right now, 3 of them are occupied. And there's 3 changes we're thinking of making in the next couple months. But we really haven't vetted it by our community members. So if you could just discuss a little bit tonight, if you're willing to just give me some feedback. One would be changing the hours, and we could change them to whatever. We want to kind of maybe move things in line with state law, which state law is 8 a.m. to midnight, and different jurisdictions do different things. But I think there is something to be said about some consistency. Right now, ours is 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. And so if you had any thoughts about changing those to, again, making them maybe in line with state law or some variation of that. Another one would be changing the amount of medicinal marijuana, how much you can get, to 2 ounces. Because that also is regulated currently, and that's kind of what state law is right now. And the other one, changing the maximum amount of square feet that a pot shop could occupy. Right now, Littleton has set it at 2,000 square feet, which actually is, I think, pretty considerable. But it would be, either not putting a limit on it or capping it at anything a little bit more realistic. So thoughts, as I mentioned those things, I'd love to hear just concerns. I know a couple of you live within the vicinity of the one on Littleton Boulevard. So if you would have any concerns about those hours changing, share now or reach out to me privately, that would be fine too. Nothing. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
We don't want anyone to be blindsided for bringing this up. So think about it, talk to your neighbors about it, and then I'll keep you posted too on when the dates of, if we're going to move forward. We're really just in the kind of thinking stage of what that would look like, stuff like that. So I think those are the major 2 things that I want to discuss with you tonight. So.
Wonderful. Yeah. Next up, director's reports.
Well, dovetailing, you're greatly appreciative to host a really strong civility workshop run by our own Councilmember Ryden and her opponent in the 21 election, right? Which surpassed, I think, the registration attendance that we were expecting. We saw about 45 people there when I counted. And really strong feedback from folks who participated and folks who were passing by curious about what's going on. So pleasantly surprised and more than proud to be part of that. Bemis Library is hiring with a capital H. I think in the past month or so, we've had probably, I lose count, but something like 4 or 5 positions that have gone posted and are now in process, and a couple more that are coming up because of current or anticipated vacancies. So a lot of up promotions and a lot of new folks and new faces that we're looking forward to welcoming. Meanwhile, we're getting ready to launch our summer reading season, which starts officially on May 28th and runs for for youth and teens until July 31st, and for 18 and plus through August 31st. I'll not take over the entire meeting by going over the entire program details. Plenty of information on the website. One thing I was really proud of the team of achieving this year is we got a single point sign up for all of the reading challenges, regardless of age group, rather than sign up here for this age bracket, they're here for this age bracket. We're consolidating all of it to one registration form, which will greatly help us and greatly help anybody who's trying to sign up. And we welcome everybody to participate. More information on the website and on our calendar.
Just two quick things from me. Next week is the American Alliance of Museums Annual Conference. So Becky, Jenny, a couple of the staff members and I will be out of town Wednesday through the following Monday in beautiful Baltimore. So nothing like East Coast. Thank you, Joni. Nothing like Baltimore in May as the humidity ramps up. But it was always a good conference, always a good opportunity to rub elbows with our fellow museum professionals. So it'll be a good conference, I'm sure. And then the other thing is just a reminder to turn your signature sheet on the ethics statement back into Becky. I think you have until the end of this meeting, and then she starts hunting you down. Yeah, that is accurate.
All right, next up on the agenda is public comment. If you wish to address the fund or the Arts and Culture Board under public comment, please sign in prior to the meeting's calling to order. Each speaker will be limited to 3 minutes. The Arts and Culture Board is not authorized by Colorado Open Meetings Law to discuss, comment, or take action at the meeting on any issues raised by public comment that is not part of the agenda already. As chair, I may refer the matter to the appropriate city staff for immediate comment or to obtain additional information and report back to the board as appropriate. We have one person signed up. Ms. Chadbourne, the floor is yours.
Thanks. 3 minutes. My name is Pam Shepard, and I think you've all heard me talk before about the value of a historic district from Broadway to Lowell, kind of along the Littleton Boulevard Main Street corridor with Bellevue and Bulls as part of it. That's my vision. So I'm going to tell you that this would be a great legacy for the city for the next 80 years. Historic districts tend to raise all boats, and they're more resilient during downturns, and they are productive to cities. We have an opportunity that most cities do not have. One of the top remaining more mid-century modern small entrepreneur buildings than anybody else in Colorado, or you could argue about 1, 2, or 3. Now is the time that those kind of assets are lost in their lives because they need some rehab, and so people say, "Oh, that's old," and they don't appreciate it yet. And boy, every 5 years that goes on, they'll get more and more valuable. And if we squander it and waste it, we will have done that. That will be our fault. And I don't think investing in front range, what I call mediocre restaurants, is a long-term proposal for Littleton. They're certainly attractive, and a lot of cities are doing that. And that's exactly why Littleton should be different. We can be unique and use our assets and build on that. So I'm looking for the culture side of arts and culture here. Authenticity was one of our 5 lenses that people wanted in the envision process. We have authentic assets on Littleton Boulevard that we should preserve. I'm going to say our city staff has not brought that forward yet, and I would like you guys to ask for that scenario. We need to flesh it out a little bit. I can't do it in 3 minutes, but I guarantee you it's worth doing. And it would be a huge loss to Littleton, I think, and irreparable, lost forever. I think it could be a national or at least regional asset, and I'm not the only one. So I just wanted to say, let's look at the mid-century modern. It's an overlay district. It wouldn't be continuous, but we need design standards and guidelines also. So I'm advocating for that, and I would like you to ask for that for the city to give all of us more data on it. Thanks.
I'm going to go ahead and close public comments as there's no one else to comment. Next up on the agenda, old business project updates.
That's me.
Anna, thank you.
I don't have too much new from our meeting last month to share. We do have some new business about the mural program, so we'll get to that. Lodgers tax, of course, we're reviewing tiers 1, 3, and 4 later this week. And I mentioned in my email to you all last month that we had a big turnout of tier 2 applicants, which we'll be looking at in more detail, of course, in July. But $868,000 worth of asks for $250,000 of
Say that
grant
again?
money. $868,000 in asks for $250,000 available funding.
So that was that's less than last year then, right? Technically.
No, it's more.
100,000.
It's about 100,000 more than last year.
I thought it was $1 million. Like it wasn't.
Just for tier 2.
Oh,
Just for
okay.
tier two.
And we'll be diving very deep into that in July. The last item of old business I wanted to let you all know is that the Arts and Culture Master Plan is moving full steam ahead. We have reviewed the applicants as staff and we've forwarded it on to procurement. So that's where it is sitting as of this week. And I'm really hopeful that we can get started with the firm that was chosen, hopefully by early June, maybe even end of May. We'll see. But there's been a lot of forward movement on that and we'll keep you apprised as updates come. You look like you have a question, Judy.
I do. I have many, but none appropriate for right now.
Yeah.
So when will we see the grants
The grants for tier
Yeah.
2?
for tier 2? Yeah.
My goal is to send them out electronically the first week in June. So you'll have
Okay.
about 6 weeks to review them before our mid-July meeting.
Good.
Any other questions about old business?
All right, moving right along. Under new business then, this isn't really anything for action by the board, but I did want to just let everyone know that based on our conversation last month, our museum subcommittee, and if I get this wrong, shout it out that I got it wrong, will be chaired by Denise with Roy, Joe, Noah, and Michelle. Our public arts subcommittee will be chaired by Joni with Katie, Noah, and Michelle if we need her. Which I think that was your second choice, so scratch your name off that one because we don't need you.
Okay.
And then the library subcommittee will be chaired by Kate with Michelle, Dennis, Tim, and Joe. Anything there not sound right? Okay, then. So you're on both museum and library, Michelle, is that true?
Okay.
Okay, is that good?
Yeah, as long as they're at night,
Yeah.
evening, yep.
So then with that officially appointed, and if at any point anybody needs to change, just say so, we're casualty. Next up, the Littleton Brew Company mural design approval. This will be probably the one and only time that we as a commission, as a board,
I do it too.
consider a mural. Once the public art subcommittee is up and running and oriented and has a process, these will just go to that group for approval, but based on timing and the process to get both that subcommittee up, oriented and going, as well as the request for this mural, we're just gonna go ahead and bring it to the full board for consideration. So enjoy it tonight. And that's it.
We'll
Is
have a
this-
little, yeah, we're Anna and I are gonna tag team on this one. A few months ago, Anna was approached by an applicant, Littleton Brewing Company, on Littleton Boulevard. There's the map on the sides there that shows what the location is on Littleton Boulevard on the north side. Asking about financial assistance for a mural that they want to put on their new building, the west facing wall of their new building.
It's because they're jealous of the ballet companies.
Since they're neighbors, I assume that's
I know.
exactly what it is.
Well done.
It would almost be better if they were facing each other so they could have a little bit of a fight, but no.
Oh, it could be a dance off.
Thank you. We're going musical theater, I see, okay. In any event, this is, we think it's a good project. We think it's a good location, very visible on Littleton Boulevard. Anna has worked pretty extensively with the applicant. She's now really diving into tier 2 since we have 63 grant applications this year. Last year we had 30. So she's very busy with that. So I'm going to take the back end of this project and work it through. She's got the photos that she'll show you of the wall and the locations. And I'll turn it over to you, and then we'll jump back in for the staff recommendation.
Sure. So as Tim mentioned, on the left is a photo of the current wall as it is on the newly constructed brewery. It's the west facing wall. And the design on the right is a computer rendering of the proposed design. The applicant has indicated that the cost is $20,000 and he thinks that the timeframe for the artist to complete it would be between 1 and 2 weeks. This is High Plains. And this is just a quick bio of the muralist that the applicant's chosen for the design. They're called the Worst Crew. So you can take a minute to read their bio if you're interested.
Some of you have probably heard of the Worst Crew. They're fairly well known up in Denver and do a lot of murals. So they're fairly established, and they're a good bunch to work with. So I think they will be pretty quick, and it's a relatively small project for them.
Remind me where the 20K comes from again?
So we have $20,000 in tier 4 of the lodger's tax. Now we have already, well, here's the staff recommendation then, as you'll see. As Anna mentioned, $20,000 is the estimate for this total installation of the mural. We do already have one mural, a small one at
Centennial Academy of
Thank you,
Fine
Centennial
Arts.
Academy.
Yeah.
That it's an indoor mural, so it's a small $5,000 grant for that one. So obviously we can't do the full funding on this one, and I don't think we would advocate for that anyway, given how close it is to Littleton Ballet's installation. So what we're going to recommend to the board is that we use $10,000 out of the tier 4 mural program funding. That'll leave us about 5,000 in the fund. We do have, I think, 6 to 8 potential other murals that are queuing up at this point. Some of them are in tier 2 grant applications. Some of them are coming forward on their own. So we do want to have a little bit left in the tank since we're only in May of this year. But that would be staff's recommendation to the board for their consideration. It'd be a $10,000 grant to cover 50% of the project cost.
So what is the significance of High Plains?
I don't know the answer to that. I do know that it's part of, if you go to the website, it's sort of incorporated into their logo. I can pull it up and show you.
So it
right,
seems
but
Let me do this.
like
Let me-
I don't know.
Yeah, so let's do this. Any other part of the presentation or recommendation?
That's it for, I mean, that's all I have to show.
So I
Unless
guess
Tim
the
had other
one
things to
that we
add.
should mention is that we did run this through community development, through the signs or the code division to make sure that it would not be considered a sign rather than a mural. And they have determined that it would not be a sign. So that cleans the process considerably.
So I'm just gonna go around the room, starting with Denise, and questions and comments. And then we can circle back and make a determination.
I don't have any questions right now.
I guess my question again, what is High Plains significant of? It's funny that it's near the weed shop and it seems a little advertising to me.
That was our concern because it was writing, so that's why we run all of them by codes to make sure, and they did take a look at it. I think they also had some questions, but when they went out and inspected it, talked to the owner, their determination was that it was not a sign. It would be considered a mural. But we had that same question.
I don't have any problems with it. It doesn't do anything for me, but I don't have a problem.
No questions or comments?
I mean, I would ideally like to see a couple of options if we're gonna spend those dollars, like if they had those guys could come up with 14 different murals, I bet, as options. It does seem a little consistent with their brand as opposed to like something that's for the community.
Yeah, good point. I agree with you there. I think it's more of an advertisement rather than something that would be beneficial for the community to brighten up the wall instead of this cinder block wall. I mean, I would love that it's painted, but I'd like to see something different.
Michelle?
So I think it's kind of funny, in like a psychedelic kind of way, and especially if cars are hiding the planes part. And it's just fine.
Very good point. Cars will be parked out there all the time.
I did not think about that.
Tim?
Nice call.
So did someone say it is part of their official branding or some,
It
The High
appears, it appears on their website. It's not a part of their logo or branding.
so it is kind of advertising then? I mean, if it's.
That was the question we had
Yeah.
for codes.
Mhm.
So my understanding, and I'm looking staff to you to correct us, is as of right now, there's one that's already been approved and in progress at Centennial Fine Arts Academy. This is the only application we have before us at this time,
This is
although
your-
we do
yes.
believe there will
Yes.
be more coming throughout the year.
That's accurate.
Based on the current mural program, as it exists today, this meets, it falls within the boundaries.
It does.
And we as a board have the option to approve it, deny it, send it back for comments.
You can also
the
change
above,
you can also change the amount. This is just staff's recommendation.
or change the amount from the recommended 12,000 to
10,000.
anything. Sorry, 10,000 to anything else. So based on that, I will open up the floor for, while we don't have to do motions and seconds and all that, open up the floor for comments or additional recommendations.
So, I think it's kind of, like, besides being funny, that it's kind of fun. And I think that's what I like about the murals, is when they do maybe make you think or laugh or, I don't know. So I think I like it.
Which is to say you would support
I would
the
just, yeah,
recommendation
the
of staff.
10,000, yeah.
Others?
I'd like to keep some money in the tank, and it is part of their branding. So their branding does say High Plains Brewing, so, I'd like to see some other projects. So we could give, I would support like a portion of it, but not 12 grand or more than that.
So staff's recommendation is 10,000, which is half of the estimated cost.
But we have total, what do we have total in tier 4?
We had 20 total in tier 4. We have 5 that is allocated, so you have 15 total left in the tank.
How many other murals are on the table? We don't know for sure.
We don't have any more applications, but we know that there are probably half a dozen, Anna, that are in tier 2. Grant applications that could fall in the mural program for next year instead.
Which is all for next year funding.
Well, it could be, or if we had money left over and were able to do a small one or something, we could potentially. deal that out.
They applied,
Applied in tier 2 for
assuming.
next year's funding.
The other thing I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, is we don't have to spend all tier 4, and if we don't, it rolls over
It rolls
to be
over.
spent in future years. I'm gonna go to you, Joni. Did you finish your thought?
As finished as I want. I mean, I get that to them, it costs $20,000. And that's what they've said it costs or whatever, but I'd be reluctant. I'm like thinking I would rather wait for like a cooler project that we could either have rollover dollars than to give them basically over half of the cost of it. It's my concern.
I feel like we can do better. I feel like I mean, if we wanna allocate money to it, I feel like we give them $5,000 as a token, as a token of goodwill from us, but I feel like we can do better than this. I feel like the artists can do, it's cool, but it's an advertisement to me. I know it's not to the
I
city.
was kind of agree just on the amount too, that ponying up a full half of the bill for it seems like a lot for what is an advertisement for their brand, or more so than just kind of general public art. And I don't hate it. I don't have a problem with what the design is or anything myself. It's fine, but yeah, if there are other things that could be coming down the pipeline that we don't know about, that those funds could go to as well, then I kind of like that idea of, yeah, give you the thumbs up and maybe 5, but not a full half. I kind of agree with Joni on that.
I mean, just to take a step back to last year when we were evaluating funding requests for people that wanted to do HVAC improvements, capital improvements, and we kind of said, what's the connection to like the end goal? This Aiken's right to that. Like, we're paying for them to advertise their company. I think there's a balance in there.
Denise, any?
Chewing on everything I'm hearing, I do like the idea of promoting goodwill and reaching an olive branch out. And I do like the idea of $5,000 too. I think that that's still in the grand scheme. I mean, it's a quarter of the cost to them, which is still, I think, a huge benefit to them. It also gives us some money to play with down the road. And depending on what we have with grant applications,
Evan. Potential.
there's some other opportunities that we may have coming up as well. I like keeping the door open.
Wait, what are the 7 applications? JD's, I think, is gonna address that in the next agenda item, but
Is it related to?
it is semi-related because in the tier 2 applications for this year, there were 7, that asked specifically for new murals or touch-ups on existing ones.
So they have been applied for funding for 2025. So we know that there's an ongoing interest in murals around Littleton.
Yeah.
Based on those applications. Roy, you were.
Is it within our purview to ask them to maybe provide us with an alternate?
I believe it's in our purview to do
Absolutely.
any of those things. Yes.
As I said, this doesn't do anything for me, and I'd like to see something a little more Littleton oriented.
So, please.
Just a tiny bit of context. I don't expect it'll sway a lot of minds, but the term High Plains is a geographic term for a region of the Great Plains at a higher elevation, such as you might find in eastern Colorado. There are plenty of companies and products branded and named after that. So it's not exclusive to branding, but there are a lot of brands that use that phrase.
Okay.
So what I'm hearing, if I was to summarize, is that the Arts and Culture Board is pleased to offer $5,000 of funding towards this as presented, or would entertain additional options or choices for future consideration. Is that accurate? Thumbs up, everybody? Speak.
good.
Tim, Anna, is that good direction? Okay.
Or, so I just want to make sure I'm understanding the direction. $5,000 for the design as it is presented, as we talked about this evening, or an opportunity for the applicant to come back with alternate designs.
Yeah, I think with notes, and you can comment, and they could certainly watch this meeting and go back and see it, but a little more Littleton, a little less brandy advertising in the feel of it, while we recognize that it is not, per our community development department, a sign. It has the feel perhaps of advertisement. So 5,000 to move forward as it's presented, but we would love to have some other options and see additional choices.
I will be creative in how I write brandy, so it doesn't look like you're asking them to switch products.
Fair enough.
On here.
Okay, wonderful. Next up, grant applications for tiers 1, 3, and 4. As we get into this, and hopefully I'm not stealing any thunder. As you may recall, if you've sat on the commission for a little bit, or if you're new, this may be new information to you. City Council, in their policy setting for the lodger's tax funding, has directed 50% of all of the revenue from the lodger's tax go towards what is commonly known as the Big Four organizations, and is split evenly amongst them. So that is the Littleton Museum, the Littleton Library, Town Hall Arts Center, and Hudson Gardens. So you have those applications before you tonight. There, you are welcome to comment. You are welcome to vote yes or no on them. But in reality and all practicality, city council has already endorsed those. And so those, with our comment, recommendation, or otherwise, is advanced straight to city council. The same is true with tier 3, which is 125,000 in funding that goes towards the promotion and tourist element of promoting Littleton. And that is certainly with the lodgers tax coming from our hotels. We want to promote those hotels. We want people to come and stay in those hotels. That, again, we are more than welcome to comment on it. You are more than welcome to vote yes or no on it, but that will be advanced directly to city council for their final consideration when they approve the budget in October, November, depending on timing. Tier 4, we have more flexibility. It is the remainder of the money after tiers 1, 2, and 3 are taken out. There's a recommendation that you'll see tonight as to how that money can be spent over the next year. We've talked already about the mural program, which is part of it. So that has more room for discussion and option before we advance that to city council. And then we will take up tier 2 next time we meet, which will be July. The last thing I'm gonna say really quick is when it comes time to consider tier 1, I am going to recuse myself from the conversation and any action or voting because I still serve on the board of Town Hall Arts Center. So at that point, I'm gonna let Denise take over and chair and facilitate the conversation. And then I'll jump back in when we get to the tiers 3 and 4. So with that, I will turn it over to Anna, Tim.
I would just make one real quick clarification before Anna takes the lead on all of this. You're correct on the percentages in the formula, percentages that are in the formula, because the revenue last year was reduced from what we originally thought it would. We thought we had about $1 million distributed. It ended up being about 850,000. The target number this year is also 850,000. So we went with last year's modified formula. So it's not, it is not exactly 50% for the big 4. That would be about 105, 106,000. So we ran it at 100,000 for each of the big 4. 120, the tier 3 stayed the same, tier 2 stayed the same, and tier 4 went down to 75,000 because we had to make that adjustment. So it isn't quite the percentages that we have in the formula, but it is the formula that the board used last year.
Thank you. Okay. So how do you recommend we go about?
Did all board members get a chance to review the electronic copies last month? Okay, great. So as JD said, there's 4 organizations in tier 1. Should we go through them individually or vote as a group? We haven't discussed that yet.
I think last year we did them as a package.
We did do it as a group, and I think because it's a pass-through, that makes the most sense since it's designated from city council, so.
So I just have a question. So with the big 4, do we ask, do we know what they did with the funding from last year? Like,
That's a good question. Yeah. They are all doing both mid-year and end-of-year reports. And May 31st is the deadline to get in the mid-year report. It's just, I think 8 to 10 fairly basic questions, mostly as an accountability measure. It's also an opportunity for them to share pictures, which would be more of like a qualitative, if, just to check, it's a mid-year check-in, so it is what it sounds like. And I've gotten a lot of those in already, but I can't report on that
like
right
it's
now.
kind of weird to vote already without, not that I have a problem with it, but like Town Hall Arts Center, that's the same thing that was asked for last year, right? Like is it very different than?
The only one that's actually very similar, I think, is Hudson Gardens. The other ones have some.
I don't remember
changes.
Hudson Gardens being like all about the concert. Was it all about the concert last
Well,
year?
Hudson Gardens did have one new element, and that was the concert, but everything else is pretty much the same with programming.
Yeah, but it's like 92,000 for the concert or something, right? Like
Yeah, Hudson Gardens last year, excuse me, had I think 5 elements, 4 of them were programming, and then the last one was the strategic plan, which they are in the process of. They have an RFP out right now. They're in the process of doing that one. They expect to have that done by the end of the year. So I think all the elements in this year's application are programmatic.
think it, I think it's relatively safe to say that all four tiers are asking, or all four organizations are asking for similar things. Staffing for library, museum, programmatic and visioning elements for Hudson Gardens, and capital improvements for Town Hall Arts Center. I think it's safe to say that all four probably are and will continue to be similar year to year.
So with our, I mean, is this just something that like city council basically tracks and we don't worry about the big four really? Yeah.
Or like the reports?
Well, yeah, like it seems like we're voting, like,
The accountability piece will come back to the board. Those mid-year reports and end-of-the-year reports will all come back to the board. You're right, the timing is a little awkward. But it's tied to the budget calendar. So that's kind of where we got stuck. Otherwise, we end up doing all four tiers in July after the mid-years are in.
yeah.
Because these were mostly pass-throughs and council designated the four for tier one. We try to get these in May along with 3 and 4. But you're right, I mean, the timing is what it is. It's not very, it doesn't give you an opportunity to review a mid-year report at this point.
And I
Next
think,
year you'll have 2 of those. You'll have this year's mid-year, this year's end of the year in your hand before you get next year's applications. This year's a little awkward.
We've got the directors. Oh, he.
well, and I was gonna say, this year is what's tricky because it is the
Except
first
Hudson.
year.
Yeah.
We don't have the opportunity yet to see the mid-year report because we just started the year. I think the first year is a little bit more challenging because it's new. We haven't really had much of that time to go back and reflect, but by next year we'll have
Yeah.
that first year and then the next half to look at and see and comparison. The first year is a little bit tricky though, I think, time wise.
So just a little side step. So will we have, for tier 2, will we have that accountability from this year by the time we're reviewing next year's?
We will, yeah, because the deadline is May 31st. Not all of course, not all of last year's applicants for tier 2 have returned, so I don't know how relevant it will be for
Yeah.
the July conversation. But I can definitely, my plan is to put together a packet of the mid-year. I don't know, we haven't discussed it as staff yet about how it's actually gonna look. But my plan is to share that with the entire board once that comes through, in a way that's easier to read than just like a spreadsheet.
I think the other thing to factor in is our ability, especially in tiers 1, 3, and 4, but certainly also in tier 2 to some degree, to influence what I think you're getting to is when the policy is renewed by council at the end of this year. So go through the process with the rules as they exist today and the system as it exists today. And then we have the ability to make a recommendation, recommend changes to that for the 2025, 2026, well, I don't know what year it is, the next cycle.
Yeah.
So if you wanted more information, or if we as a board wanted to say, all projects need to be spent on things that are purple, we could make that recommendation to a policy change for future years. But we don't necessarily have that to work with this year.
I don't know if that answers your question though.
Yeah.
I know it's challenging
It
the
just
first
feels,
year.
yeah, it just feels like this is the first year. It's the first time we're going through this. And like, if we're setting that precedent, if this is the way it's gonna go, or if we're gonna say this is a special year because.
Well, I think it is kind of a special year because next year, when you get into this May meeting and you're looking at tiers 1, 3, and 4, you're gonna have the previous years, you're gonna have this year's mid-year and this
true.
year's end of
Right.
the year. So you'll have both of those in your pocket and have reviewed those by the time you get the grants. This year, we don't have that because we didn't fund last year. So this is our test run, I guess.
Yeah.
Did we want to dive into this a little bit deeper? Did you have some things that you wanted to share with us for each tier or?
I didn't, on the assumption that everyone has looked at
There's
this
quite-
already.
there's
I have one other
Questions for
question.
each-
Yeah, sorry. So was there a tier 2 grant last year for that red, white and blue concert?
I think you're I know,
What
you're
is
not
that?
thinking of Hudson Gardens, I think you're thinking of the Arapahoe Philharmonic.
Oh, and that
So
was
at
at
Breckenridge
Breckenridge Brewery.
It's a similar
Oh, okay,
title,
okay.
but not
All
the
right,
same.
sorry. Yeah.
Did anyone have any other specific questions about any of the 4 tier 1?
I would thought it was interesting that the other funding sources, I would have thought that there would be other funding sources that, like Hudson Gardens says the only other funding source that they have is SCFE, and the library says the only other funding source they have is the Colorado State grant. Like, there's no other funding sources that come to either one of those organizations from any other source.
I can't speak to Hudson Gardens, but both the library and the museum get the bulk of our normal funding from the city's general fund.
Is there a reason you didn't have a diversity inclusion statement?
We're working on one.
Can I just ask a real interest, I don't know. I was just wondering on budgeting with regard to using these funding that you guys, all of them are using to fill a specific position. And maybe you can just talk to this a little bit. Why would you not use the general funding rather than this funding? Or why would you not have your positions with the general funding rather than using this?
It's a great question, Joe. Primarily because the museum hasn't been able to add a new position into the general fund since 1996.
Because of the general fund. Okay,
Because, yeah,
got it.
it just has not been available to us. We put in requests almost every year, and every department asks for them. The ones that we've asked for have not risen to the top. So one of the things that council said going into the lodger's tax was that they certainly encouraged Dennis and me to use our funding to try to add to our staff and be able to augment the staffing in a way that we haven't been able to do through the general fund.
Correct.
So that's,
And so many other people in the city are also adding positions as well.
they are, those aren't all from the general fund. Some of them are coming out of some special funds, but we've not had a special fund that was directed towards arts, culture, and tourism until now. It's a great question. That's one that we bring up at every budget workshop we go to, so.
And just to add a bit of nuance, it's not that library and I don't have quite the history that Tim does, but it's not that library and museum have been left out in the cold. It's that all departments for a long time have been struggling to get the level of staffing to meet the demand and do that within the sales tax base that we've got. And so with the lodger's tax, that gave our 2 departments a unique opportunity that other departments didn't have. And so this is how we sought to use it.
The other thing I just want to caution everyone as we ask questions is not to ask the applicants, and I know it's weird because Dennis and Tim are here and I'm here, but none of the grant applicants in any other tier, in tier 2, have the ability to be in this room and defend their request to us. So I think as best as we possibly can, going off what's on the paper in front of you is the way to approach this that is appropriate.
So that being said.
Can I ask Gretchen a question then? Is council prepared to continue if funds were to drop? Is council prepared to keep these employees? Or is that a possibility through the general fund? Or if, heaven forbid, bad things happen and our tax dollars drop, are these people out of jobs?
It could be.
Okay.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, I've tried to make it clear that we don't want them, like you, not to ask for positions during the regular budget cycle to rely solely on this, because we want to augment and not just maintain, you know what I mean? And that was a fear of mine that would happen, and that hasn't so far, because we want to audit, but when it comes to sales tax and budget stuff, I think there's a lot of horse trading.
Okay, thank you.
And that's the question you just asked, is one of the reasons why it's such a contentious topic when we're adding employees in the budget cycle. Because we worried about, can we maintain this?
Right.
So looking at tier one, I think we've all had a chance to go through it. We can approve it as a package of all four together. We would need somebody to make that motion for us to approve this to move on.
I motion to approve.
Michelle,
That's this.
Second.
Joe. All in favor? Kathleen? Unanimous?
And depending on how your notes are,
Abstaining. All right. Thank you. We've got that one down. I'm gonna pass it back over to Jamie.
thank you. Next up, then tier 3. Which you also have in front of you, and I think, again, based on what you've heard and then what you've read, happy to answer any questions that we can, since there's no insider knowledge in the room, but I think staff and to the extent Denise and I can answer any questions that we might be able to. If not, then ask for a motion for that as well.
For tier 3 for the communications department, I do know that much of this funding is going to be used to promote the new Visit Littleton website, whereas last year it was used to build it. This is actual advertising of the website itself and the services that it offers.
Do you know what Equative or Lamar?
I don't.
Equative is that's an SEO engine, basically like for ads.
Okay.
And then Meta, I have to believe that Meta is Facebook, basically
Instagram.
Facebook marketing. I don't know what Lamar is.
Lamar is, I believe, bus stop ads.
Details.
Bus stop and bus tails.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I thought it was donuts for a second. but-
Roy, you had a question?
What was SEO again?
Search engine optimization.
Search engine optimization.
Oh,
So
okay.
like targeting ads. comes
Okay,
up,
okay.
somebody searches something.
And I believe all of this, and I don't remember if it's in there, is Colorado advertising.
Yes.
So it's all the money stays within the state.
This is my only disappointment, and I'm just gonna air it, please. I don't see anything in here that's like a give back. Like this is all coming from hotels, and I just don't see like a communication strategy in here that's doing anything to kinda, I don't know, bring people back, like, you know, bring people from the hotels to downtown. It just doesn't, it just seems like, hey, I wanna build a website that's just marketing Littleton, and that's great, but I feel like there's other communication strategies besides digital media. And I mean, I get the Lamar, if that's bus stops and stuff like that or whatever, but it seems like it's really focused on web. And I feel like there's other mechanisms to advertise, and then like, what are the hotels getting out of this besides?
I can address that a little bit.
Please.
And I can only because yesterday at leadership team, we got a sneak preview of the advertising campaign and mechanisms from the communications department. And while it is probably majority focus, I guess if you have anything to throw in, please do. Majority focus on digital media. There is a lot of physical as well, and they are planning to do both some radio and TV. And also, I think some limited print, but the idea is not only, it's to drive business towards the website, towards the Visit Littleton website, but contained on that website are all those hotels, are all the restaurants, the sights and sounds of Littleton as well. So the strategy is pretty multifaceted, it looked to me.
Yes, I think the only facet that we haven't covered is does also include a sequence of billboards up and down the major
That's right.
interstates. I forget how far they stretch, but certainly for
42, yeah, but
several dozen miles.
And I recall, and I don't know if you can speak to this or not, last year in tier 3, it was broken down as, 20,000 to this, 30,000 to that, 25,000 to this. And at that time, what was communicated to us was that wasn't an actual percentage pie chart of how the money would be used. It was an example of how the money might be distributed. I don't know if that's the case.
I think that's probably accurate, although they are really close to being under contract for a lot of these things now. So I think the numbers are gonna be hard pretty soon.
The website is live right now, so you can take a look at it if you like.
We are gonna bring communications in the coming months just to share with us the website and the strategy of what's going on. So we were hopeful that it could happen tonight. But that, my request for that came in like 3 days ago, and apparently this is not on everyone's calendar, much to my chagrin. So again, happy to answer questions or certainly pass comments and notes along. But otherwise would ask for a motion.
A motion to approve.
Thank you, Joe. Michelle, second. Again, all in favor? It's everybody. Thank you. Tier 4 then, same third verse, same as the second. Anna, would you care to elaborate on anything?
It's $75,000 total in tier 4. And you'll see the breakdown into the 4 categories under grant proposal, which I'm again assuming you've already all looked at and mulled over. You'll see, I don't know if you noticed this or not, but then the designations between those 4 categories, we did change on staff recommendation just a little bit from last year. Most notably, we added more funding to the mural program. This is, like JD said at the beginning, this is the tier that I think we have the most room to mess with. So, yeah, what are people's thoughts or questions?
Let me start here. Any questions about what the categories are?
Oh, yeah, there's a lot of acronyms.
For the off-cycle request, that's just like, that's just a savings account in case somebody comes in mid-year?
It is, I think we anticipated last year that we might get mid-year requests and I think where we're seeing that mostly right now is in the mural program, but I do think that could really broaden. Last year, we just didn't have the flexibility because we had $45,000 for the Arts and Culture Master Plan. That was item number 1 on the board's strategic plan 2.0. So this year we're spending that. We anticipate having that done by the end of this year. So that money rolled back into availabilities, which is why you're seeing more money distributed. Last year, we also were not able to put any money towards public art acquisition. This year, we have put that back, and that was one of council's requests prior to the first year.
And CAP is the Culture and Arts Partners Group that meets quarterly. And SOTA is the State of the Arts event that occurs every week, which many of you were at.
So then we go around the circle again. Denise, do you want to start?
I just have to say, I really love that we have the off-cycle requests in here. I think that that's going to be really important going forward. I think we're going to see even more people coming to us thinking, oh, I missed the grant opportunity. So even in future years, if that goes up a little bit, that wouldn't hurt my feelings. And I also love that the mural program went up. I think that we're going to see a lot of benefit to that as well. So I like the way this looks.
Jody?
Yes, it looks lovely.
Everything Denise said, plus, maybe I'm crazy and I can't remember. Public art acquisition last year.
We did not. We had to take it out completely because when the estimate of revenue went down, we had to pull that out completely.
So I'm really optimistic that we can make use of that. So I fully support it.
Thank you.
Michelle?
Yeah, I think it looks good. The funding part's missing here in the column. just
You're
for
right.
The other ones. Yeah,
Gosh.
but it looks good.
Tim? So I'll just close by saying this, and that is that at least in the categories of mural and public art and probably off cycle as well, this isn't nearly enough funding. It's not nearly enough. It is what it is. My hope is that as a board, and frankly, as a community, we can continue to make a case to council that while the lodger's tax is a wonderful source of revenue for all of the things that it is funding, Littleton and the citizens deserve more. And again, hopefully we can continue to make a case for that and demonstrate the return on investment of it. But for now, I like the breakdown. I think it's a solid way to go.
I just remembered something. So are we giving any guidance about, for people that want murals, whether they should go to the mural program or do a tier 2 grant?
At this time, we have not offered any guidance.
But the next item on the agenda may help
That-
with
yeah.
that.
So with that, anyone care to make a motion?
I was just gonna make one, I'm exposing my bias.
Please do.
I want to double down with what you said. That's why I started asking some of the questions that I asked of the city of Littleton and that impact of all of the program, and that's $100,000, right? And I really hope I'm wrong, like in terms of like we get, 5 for 1, we're seeing a lot of impact from that program, because when I look at this 75, and I can see impact, a lot of impact out of this. And I really hope that program is as impactful as this program could be.
And I think that's something that we can ask when communications come, is how are they measuring success, and what are the expectations that they have for that program? And certainly I can appreciate that building a website and it can take a couple of years to really populate and iron out the kinks and raise awareness to it. But I think those are good questions to ask communications when they're able to come in and share with us their vision for Visit Littleton and the whole program. So anyone care to?
I moved it forward.
No, thank you.
A second.
Joe, thank you. Last chance for comments and questions. If not, all in favor? Everybody's a yes. Thank you very much. Well, I dare say that was the easy one. Tune back in for July, when it'll be exciting. The next thing on our new business agenda is a tier 2 grant approach to funding. And is this on, did everybody get an updated agenda, or is this just?
No, that one did not go.
Okay, surprise.
Oh, is it?
No, it is.
It's
Oh, it
No,
is. Okay.
sorry, Becky got it updated, sorry.
So one of the things that we talked about, Denise and I, and when we meet with Tim to try to make this dance look good, is to offer to the board opportunities to how we consider tier 2 funding when we meet again in July. So it's not a policy change. City council, when they considered this last year and moved it forward, gave 2 I won't say conflicting messages, but could be interpreted in a number of ways. And so we are offering this group the chance to interpret it in a way that they want. Number one is they wanted to continue to keep the program open to as many possible applicants as possible as it relates to for-profit, nonprofit. Been here for 20 years, been here for 20 days, has a DEI statement, doesn't. All of those things are preferences. None of those things are requirements for the applicants of this program. That is direction from city council. When they were looking at our recommendations from last year, they also said, why is it that everybody got a little something? And could you narrow it down more and maybe rule some people out? For those that were in the room last year, you may recall, we didn't know if we could do that or not. And the direction that we've since received is, yes, you can set your own parameters to make it easier to perhaps give more or to rule people out. And so recognizing that we are one meeting before we're going to do this, we wanted to offer a recommendation. And this is a recommendation of Denise and I, with staff's input and thoughts added to it. And that is that we could prioritize applicants in tier 2 based on a number of criteria. Looking at those possibilities, that would be, we could pull out all 7, and I'm giving you examples right now, not the priority order. Pull out all of the mural applications and take them out of tier 2 and say that you may apply for the mural program funding. That's where that funding can come from. We could pull out all of the youth-oriented programming from tier 2. This coming year, and only this coming year, the city has Bronco Stadium funding that has to go towards youth-oriented programs. And last year, they were struggling to find enough applicants, and please correct me if you would disagree, but
There were a lot of applicants, but did not meet the satisfaction
okay.
of the council. And it was beneficial to hold on to that money to see if there were other programming them down the road.
So in service to city council, we could send some fabulous applicants their way, which would eliminate another group of applicants from tier 2. We could eliminate all for-profit organizations from tier 2 funding on first priority consideration. And or another group we thought of was groups that don't seem to be in or serving Littleton. And I think there were a couple of them that you'll see that aren't clearly Littleton focused. They are arts and culture groups to be sure, but their focus on Littleton was less than clear. So in this approach, what we would do is pull out any groups that we wanted to, focus first on considering and funding the applications that are left. And then with any money that's left, after we've considered that first group, we add the next group back in. And then the next group back in, and then the next group back in. So without debating necessarily those different groups that I just articulated, how does that approach feel? Where we say this group of applicants gets the first priority, we're going to consider them first. And if there's money left over, we'll move to the next group and then to the next group. And I know Tim and Joni, you weren't here last year, so please weigh in.
Well, can I add too?
Yes, please.
A lot of this came from the feedback that we had last year after we went through this process. It was a learning year. It was eye-opening, I think, for all of us. I think it was a huge success, but we also were able to identify things that could have gone a little bit better. So we sat as a group, and some of the feedback that we came up with was, there's for-profits in here. Should we have those as our primary group that we're looking at, or should we just set them aside? We're not saying remove them permanently, but set them aside initially to focus on the nonprofits. That was something that I think pretty much everybody in the group had brought up and said, again, last year was a learning year. So we went through this process and then identified maybe we could do this a little bit different. I think every year we're going to see things in a different light. That was one thing that was pulled out. The murals we talked about, there's other opportunities for murals. So maybe that's not in the initial run through. Maybe we set that aside and see if there's somebody else that we want to designate money to. So this was largely from feedback that the entire group provided last year. And I also think when we met, it makes sense to give us a little bit more of a direction to start with, considering how many applicants do we have again?
We have 63 individual
63.
applications, but many of those applications are multiple from the same. So 49 unique applicants, 63 total applications received, if that makes sense.
Right, and this might help that process run a little bit more smoothly, help us identify where that money might be best spent. And then if we have money, just like you said, we will go through the process left over, then we have these other groups that we can take a look at. But it gives us a way to maybe channel our efforts initially and then bring more groups in. So it was from a lot of feedback, but I think that the feedback that was provided after last year was really insightful. Because it was brand new again. And it was after we completed the process. You think of things after you've, of course, gone through the whole round. So that's where some of this came from as well. I just wanted to make that clear too.
And we're very intentionally doing this before you see any of the applications. And so if we move forward with any part of this process, you will receive the applications sort of in bundles. So this is our first. You'll get them all, but they'll be divided up into first priority, second priority, third priority, fourth priority.
Yeah, so when we vote, are you envisioning that we would, do you remember last year how we kind of ended up at the end, like sticking to what we had, like we kind of thought like, oh, maybe we'll change it in the final round, but we didn't. We were like, yeah, that kind of balanced out. just right, almost in a lucky way or
We
something
came
like
in
that?
under, and then
Like-
we added the same percentage amount to each applicant to make
Like
it come
rolling
to
it
two
up,
fifty or
right?
240,
We
not
rounded
two
up.
forty-eight.
Rounded up,
We
yeah.
rounded up to the new
Oh.
2,000.
All I'm saying is
Yeah.
that like with this process, it makes me wonder if like, if there might be something at the end that some of us really love or are really drawn to, but we've already spent our whole wad, you know, like we've already given it all away before we get to something. I don't know, it's hard for me to say, like, for sure, I want to do that without seeing all the grants.
And yes, 100% that could be true. But that's why we're looking at this from a process standpoint blind, because if we want to pull out murals, that's relatively, I'm told, and I haven't seen the applications either, but there's clarity in that. We can pull out that group, and that's why it was recommended as one of the groups. We can pull out youth programming. And the only reason that we suggested youth programming as an option is because there is additional funding available to them this year through the city.
And is youth program, like, does that include schools?
Yes.
Okay.
Same thing with for-profit, nonprofit, that's a very clear delineation. And then service to Littleton, again, based on the applications that were submitted, there's clarity there where we can pull them out. Now, is there likely to be some amazing project in one of those lower priorities? Yes, probably. I mean, last year, I don't think there was any stinker of a project. There's not a single one that the commission was easily like,
Yeah.
They were all fabulous. And that I have to imagine will be the case again. But what we're bringing to you is a way to prioritize and make it easier to say, we want to give everybody something, or we want to really prioritize work that speaks to what the commission is trying to advance and what the city policy has set forward. So yes, we're asking you to do it in a vacuum, but that was deliberate. So let me ask first, again, questions or comments on the idea of prioritizing. And then if the group is in favor of doing so, then we can then talk about how to prioritize.
Oh.
So I'm just thinking back to last year, there was a few things that like maybe the applicants had, programming that was for youth or education or outreach or whatever it might be, but their identified funding request was things like staffing or capital improvements or things that we didn't see a direct connection to the actual
The mission.
culture, the mission.
Yeah.
How would you envision that factoring into this prioritization or evaluation?
So if, for example, Joe's Painting Shop Joe's Painting Shop offers youth programming, but they were asking for a social media consultant. Is that,
Yeah.
so I'll let Anna, because she's seen them. How would that play out in your?
I actually think it's pretty clear cut from what I've seen. I was able to identify 12 of the 63 that I thought qualified as youth programming. Are you specifically asking about that bucket? Or are
No,
you talking more
any bucket, just
generally
any bucket
about?
where we can't see a connection to the funding request to
Ah,
what they're doing.
I agree with
Yeah.
you.
One of the things we added this year at the request of the boards and from last year's experience was a drop down in the application. So they will be telling us whether they're asking for staffing or capital or programming. I think there was one other.
There's another.
There's one
Other.
more. What's that?
Other.
Other. So the board members, you'll all be able to see what it is they're asking for, even if their main focus is youth programming, if they're asking for an air conditioner,
Yeah.
that's gonna go in as a capital, as a request in the capital category. So
It'll have-
it'll be
Yeah, I mean,
broken, it'll be broken out more clearly.
The devil's advocate to my question also is like, well, if you're Joe's Paint Shop and you're asking for an air conditioner, well, you couldn't do, like, let's just say like, well, I can't bring anybody in here if I don't have the air conditioner. So there's some value to some of those things.
So let me offer this then, and I'll follow the model that city council uses for their consent agenda. The first thing we can do at the July meeting, and I'll look for guidance, is if any member challenges how something was divided, we'll just move it up.
Sure.
if staff in their wisdom puts Joe's air conditioner under some category where, and you believe that is misappropriated, we can move it up. Either, and I'll default either by, a majority thumbs up, or perhaps it's just any single person can move it up.
Yeah,
I'll-
definitely. We'll take our best shot at it. I think the drop downs will be pretty obvious, but for the ones where there's fuzziness, we'll take our best shot at it. But yeah, we welcome your input.
I do agree, though, that putting it into categories, I think would be a good idea, especially if you have other revenue sources that they could possibly tap into rather than arts and culture.
On the stadium funds, have you guys vetted that idea through Jim?
It came from Mike.
Oh, Mike, okay.
Yeah, he suggested
I
it
was
to
just
me.
checking, because it doesn't look like we've opened that up again. to the
It
public,
is,
that they
it is.
don't
I talked to
know that it's
Lucy
open.
yesterday and she said it had not opened. In fact, we really hadn't talked to you guys yet. So we are hoping that, well, by the time we get to the point of sending something out, we should know whether or not that's still a viable. That was my question too, is has council okayed this yet?
We had some other ideas for that money.
My favorite question is always, what will Reed say? So,
We would say no.
That is not my favorite question.
Roy, did you have, anyone else want to comment on the idea of creating priorities? Or enough yeses?
Yeah.
Anyone? Okay. So then, let's talk about the priority order or the groups that we can pull out. We identified 4 of them: murals, youth programming, for-profit, not in Littleton. And again, not having seen anything, but either based on your experience from last year or just what comes to mind, are there any other groups that you feel might be worth discussing tonight as we look at priorities?
I would amend that last one to say not serving Littleton.
Not serving Littleton, thank you.
Well, it doesn't meet the criteria, though. The criteria is that it has to serve. Be a
It's-
Littleton or serve.
It's a preference, but yes, that's our interpretation as well. If it is neither in Littleton nor serving Littleton, we don't think it would qualify. So that's why we would have that as the lowest priority.
Do we want to include like a population, the number of people they serve, if they serve 5 or if they serve hundreds?
Sort of good. You have enough information on the
I do.
application?
Yeah,
Okay.
people currently served
Yeah.
is already there. It's easy to pull.
I do think something that's tricky about that, though, is last year there were some applicants that served 400 people, but it was an increase of 40% over the previous year. So if we're seeing an increase and each year they're planning on doing that, I don't want to limit anybody because they may not have as great of a reach as a larger organization. So that's just something to think about as well. If we're pulling that group out, we may be missing an opportunity for somebody to double their reach to the community. It's tricky.
Okay.
Helping is tricky.
Any other possible categories to discuss?
What about like events? Or events or education, and you got like for-profit or in Littleton murals and youth programming, but like events and education that's beyond youth, like is that potentially like another? I was actually just looking back through the applicants and I saw ones like, South Metro housing options, like that doesn't, it's in Littleton, it's not for profit, but it doesn't do youth programming. I guess it would just fall out of that initial like priority group, I guess, what you're saying. Like if you had somebody that was doing something that didn't fall into one of our priority groups, then we'd look at it after we did that priority group.
It would stay in the.
It would stay in if it wasn't clearly able to be pulled out, it would stay in the first round of funding.
Any thoughts to looking at just general? I'm trying to remember from last year what percentage of those applicants were just asking for what I would call general operating support without naming a specific project versus those that had a specific project. And I'm kind of in the feeling that specific projects should be funded fairly strongly, you know. If somebody's got a project, I'd like to fund that project. If it's a worthwhile project, I'd like to come close to fully funding a project. But if I kind of got the impression last year that a majority of those applicants were projects rather than just general support.
And I think we collected information on events, programming, capital, and operating staffing. Is that
Events and programming are one,
events and programming are one?
capital projects, staffing, other.
So
And the vast
Did we have
majority of
marketing in
this
there
year's,
too, Anna?
oh, I think you're right, Tim.
Maybe I think.
Yeah, I think we had
just thought-
marketing,
I think maybe
which-
marketing was one of them as
And there were
well.
quite a few. The vast majority of this year's applicants are for specific projects and not for general funding.
Okay.
So you could pull out based on any of those self-identified categories. I think that would be something we could pull out.
Yeah, we'll definitely have them, all the ones that are gonna be in your first, if we decide to go this route. Everything that's in your first round of review and scoring, we will indicate which one of those drop downs it is chosen, whether it's capital, staffing, marketing, events and programming,
Okay.
other.
Keep that all.
So then, I don't want to cut anybody off.
One
Yes,
more
please.
thing. So I think last year we had a preference for the DEAI. Are we saying that it's still a preference, but we're not gonna separate out if they don't have it? We're not gonna,
It's not something that Denise and I with staff had identified. If it's something that we want to discuss, then yes, that can be a category, that could be a.
Sure.
What is the DEAI?
We asked each organization if they had a DEI or DEIB or whatever, diversity, equity, and
Oh,
inclusion
great. Thank you.
statement that the
Thank you.
organization had adopted. And so it's a yes or a no.
Great, thank you.
yeah, weirdly, I think it kind of hung us up last year. Because we would be like, well, wait, they don't have a statement. I mean, you're like, but it was the library or something, or like the city, like some. And
Yeah,
we're
the
like,
city
well,
doesn't
of
have one
course, they're
yet,
still
so-
gonna, right, so it's almost seemed like it tangled us up unnecessarily.
Yeah, I think you're right, Michelle. It was kind of a speed bump and it probably shouldn't have been because as JD mentioned, it was a preference, not a requirement. But it is one of those yes or no's. So we spent a little more time on that probably last year than I thought we were going to, but.
Yeah, so my
for
vote
good
would be
reason.
no, that we don't separate it out.
Yeah, I would agree.
Don't separate out DEI.
Yeah, I would.
Yeah, we
I
don't,
think in my mind, it doesn't have variance at this point.
yeah.
So let me offer this. If I go in what I, in my head, think to be the low-hanging fruit, and I'll ask for, because we've said, yes, we wish to prioritize it. And keep in mind, every single applicant is still eligible for funding. We're just going through how we look at them, in what order, to make our process a little more streamlined and answer some of these questions in advance. So I might offer that groups that are not serving Littleton are pulled out of early funding. Does that make anyone uncomfortable? Okay. The next one then, I think, again, by the list we had, might be for-profit versus nonprofit as groups that we can, and we'll categorize and order these in a minute. So we're not going in any order other than somewhat easier to perhaps discuss right now. Nonprofit versus for-profit, any heartburn there as to removing for-profit organizations? Okay, very good. Let me go next to murals, because we know there is another funding source for murals. I will tell you, again, not having seen the applications, our 20,000, even if we fold in mid-year funding and we all have a bake sale, it's not gonna come anywhere close to the amount of dollars that has been applied for in tier 2 funding. Again, it doesn't mean they won't get funded, it just means they would be not considered in the first round of our deliberations. Thoughts on pulling out the 7 applicants for murals?
I have doubts about that, just because maybe next year we do, or then we can put more in tier 4 for murals, you know, but it just seems like such a great, I love it. So I don't know if this
That's what
year is
the
the
average
year.
cost is. I'm sorry to interrupt, but.
It's totally variable
It's very
depending on the
variable, huh?
artist and the size of the wall, but Jenny can probably say a little bit more. We know that the average per square foot is around $45 a square foot.
But that, again, that
But that's
depends on
for
the artist, because
if-
some really
if they're
well-known
established
artists
or
And the artist
emerging.
fees,
are
I
70
assume.
$75 per square foot. And then when you add in, whether or not they need scaffolding or a lift, and then priming and painting, and then there's an anti-graffiti coating that you put on afterwards. So that kind of gets built into that, and then it kind of, the cost bubble up from there.
Okay, thank you.
We saw tonight 20,000. Town Hall Arts Center was, we got a Groupon for that and it was 15. Ballet, I don't know what that was. But I think 10 to 20,000 is an easy window to put on there and probably go up.
So too.
So-
Maybe we could, maybe, I don't,
And we don't have to, look, we don't have to like make this brain surgery. If there's a general uncomfort with taking out murals, we won't. That's okay. We've already made it a little easier on ourselves so far. These are just categories that we wanted to throw out there.
So
Any other
being-
thoughts on murals?
Being new, I would just like to see the murals. I mean, I would like
Yeah,
to see what the
who's
ask is.
asking, yeah.
And you will.
Consider it.
And again,
And,
If-
and have something to consider.
So I think they would still come through. You would
Okay.
still have them to consider. They would be in their own bucket. Which in my brain makes sense to have all the murals living in one place.
That makes sense. Yeah,
To
that makes
his
perfect
comment
sense.
earlier, if somebody looks at that and says, look, there's these 3 murals that we need to move up to a high priority,
Okay,
we could move them up to that first round. But I think because there's so many moving parts and pieces and so many different applicants, having murals in my brain living together
Mhm.
does make sense just to
That-
take a look
that
at
does
it.
make sense to me as well.
It doesn't mean that they're off the table. It doesn't mean that we can't, if you want to move every single mural up, we can do that. But I think, and this came from the feedback as well, how do we look at all of these applicants to make the most sense when we dig into it? So it could, even if we decide to move all the murals up, help us identify, this is however, 7 murals. Let's look at the 7 murals together and see where we like them instead of this big spreadsheet of lots of parts of pieces.
and let me
Sounds better.
clarify what I meant to say earlier was that if a board member believes that something was misclassified, they could challenge it and move it up. Just because something was, if there's 1 mural that's outstanding and 6 that are stinky, it stays in the mural category. I don't want to move up pet projects because we like them. I want to be able to offer, if something was miscategorized in youth programming or something else when it really isn't, I want to offer that opportunity to board members. But I don't think we should move individual projects up. I think we should honor the buckets. Yes, please.
Important information regarding the mural discussion. Hardly any of the applicants submitted an actual design to review. So we won't have, unless the request is to touch up an existing mural, we won't have anything to look at.
So we're basing it off of
The applicant
location.
request.
Yes.
So
The
we're
location,
being
the
given blank walls.
And in some cases, they've said, this is the artist I want to use, but there are no designs or anything submitted.
And at this point in the process, that's actually what we would expect, because they don't know whether they have funding for it. They're asking, could we have funding for this project? We would like to do a mural.
Can I ask a question of staff then? And this is totally off track, so maybe parking lot it. If mural funding is approved through the lodging tax, does it get approved through the mural program as far as what it is? Or since they're not asking for mural program funding, does it just get approved?
Say that one more time.
So if I apply for money from the mural program, which is funded through tier 4,
Mhm.
it goes before the public art committee or this body. We deliberate on it, we look at it, we say yes, no, or otherwise. And then as we did tonight, we advance it or we don't. That's mural program funding.
Mhm.
If someone applies for a mural through tier 2,
That's what you're saying.
are we, or do we give up our right to evaluate as we did tonight?
No, we would, any mural that was approved as a tier 2 grant, we would still run through the same process for approval and ratification.
Whereas if someone just funds it privately on their own, they don't have.
Correct.
Thank you. That was perhaps off topic, but
Great
No,
question.
So it would
No, that's
still be
that's a
approved.
great question.
And
Yeah.
by the subcommittee,
Yeah.
either way.
Yep.
It's funded through tier 2 or tier.
so no
tier
stinky
4.
grant, no stinky murals, no matter what.
Right.
And I mean, the one thing to keep in mind with that too is that this is all about the application, not the augmenting pictures, because if, you know, one organization submitted a picture of, look at our amazing project, you know, that might sway it. That type of criteria was not asked for as part of this process. So, you know, it would just go through that same process. So I mean, to get a design for a mural, that then goes through that process and making sure that they, you know.
And keep in mind, you're exactly right. I'm gonna piggyback on what Jenny said. Keep in mind too, these applicants are a year and a half out from getting money, so we wouldn't expect them to have a design or
Yeah.
probably even an artist in mind.
Yeah.
They're simply asking conceptually, could we have funding for this? But think of the process for these murals as their version of the mid-year and the end of the year reports, which they will still have to do. The applicants would still have to do if we go through tier 2, but they would still have to go through the vetting process. So the public art subcommittee and then the commission would have an opportunity to review first the design, then the amount awarded. And you could, if the design isn't approved, then that's gonna have to be written into the agreement as we put those out for the mural applicants themselves. That, you know, the design still has to go through the vetting process.
Absolutely. And whether it is or is not actually technically within the city limits, is it on historic building? You know, so there's a variety of other things
through
too.
codes.
Yeah, it's gotta go through
Gotta go through
codes, so it's
codes,
gotta
yeah.
kind of get, kind of a initial approval and then go through many other processes before it gets to that point in time.
So it'll make-
Go to the
From a simplification standpoint alone, moving as many of the murals as we can out of tier 2 and into the mural program actually makes more sense for us as a board providing it too.
Because then it could almost even like line up
Yep.
years of.
Yeah, you're
murals.
basically queuing up for that, for those additions.
That would help budget that tier 4 money.
I'm gonna, again,
Help budget.
Oh,
too.
you're right, yeah.
so I'm gonna ask one possible sidetrack question. And then what I'd like to do is do a thumbs up, thumbs down to murals. So I'll ask my question, give anyone else a last chance to speak their thoughts, and then we'll do thumbs up, thumbs down on murals. If last year, when we did not reach our threshold for tier 2 funding, we decided to round up. If we don't round up, does it automatically go to tier 4? Or does it automatically roll to tier 2 next year?
What we did last year was we ended up having $202,000 left out of tier 2. And our recommendation to council was to move that into tier 4
Okay,
it was originally as an off-cycle request. It didn't end up exactly there, but yes, you can certainly do that.
so in theory, if at the end of the night in July, we have $5,000 left over in tier 2, our recommendation is that it move to tier 4, in which case we could plug it into the mural program.
Definitely, you would simply be recommending, same thing we did last year, you'd simply be recommending to city council, your arts and culture board suggests $245,000 in grants to tier 2, and this now becomes $80,000 recommended for tier 4.
So before a thumbs up, thumbs down is to categorizing murals on their own. Any other thoughts or comments on the mural category?
Yeah, I'm so sorry. I'm just trying to, so what we did tonight was for this year's, we had $20,000 left. So it was $10,000 request for this year's tier 4, right?
Correct.
And what we're talking about right now sorry,
25,
is for,
26.
right, for next year. And you said that there's 7 applicants
Mhm.
coming in July.
Mhm.
And you're saying, should we bucket them into the tier 4?
No.
Okay,
No.
I'm saying when we look at all of the tier 2 applicants, do we look at murals first, second, third, or fourth? That order will be determined in a moment. Or do they just stay in the big pool?
oh, I
Of
see, I see, I
applicants.
see. Okay. Okay, it doesn't change, okay, the money.
I would like to see them all together, because I think
Yeah.
they're so similar. I think it'd be really good to look at them all together, especially if there's no actual renderings of the mural anyway. We're just looking at locations and where they'd be. I think it'd be good to just have them together.
So pull them out.
Pull them out as a
As a
priority,
subcategory.
and wherever we put them in, when we go over them is fine, but I'd see they need to be together.
I agree.
So that's a thumbs up, 2 thumbs up.
Yep.
Anyone want to do a thumbs down? No. Okay, so that's 3 categories we've self-identified. The last one that we proposed was youth programs. Can you, Anna, without elaborating unnecessarily, give us an idea of what we're talking about?
You've set me up with an impossible task.
I know. And you can, the answer to the
No, it's a
question,
legitimate
yeah, the answer
answer.
to the question can be no.
What are you asking for? You're wanting a
What is a
general
youth
idea?
program? What is a youth program?
Okay, so some examples might include, is that what you're asking for?
Sure. I mean,
Well, we could use some from last year
yeah,
because
I
we
was
have new
just-
members
Sure.
that didn't get to see that, so.
Sure. String sectional coaches going into after-school programs and LPS for like violin. Youth painting classes. This year we have some ideas for outside organizations bringing in like traveling trunk show type things into schools. So establishing like a new partnership with LPS.
So some kind of program or activity where the target audience.
K through 12, yeah, I think that's how we would identify
I
it. We would
think-
probably say, cut that off at 18 and not include college students, because ACC is.
Yeah.
also
I think that youth programming K through 12 is,
That's what you were asking for?
Designator
I
in
think
my
that
mind.
that helps
Yeah.
us.
It's a good
Last
designator.
year there were requests for musical instruments, for
I
marching
heard,
bands,
yeah.
that type
There's
of
some
thing.
dance ones too.
And this was, we know there's 7 mural programs,
12,
12 youth
yeah.
programs. Out of, again, so we're 63 total applicants,
It's good to do.
7 are
Yeah,
murals.
that makes sense to
It makes sense to
lump those,
put
put those in a
the
bucket also.
specific buckets. It's good.
And a lot of them are, actually, quite a number of the youth program ones are collaborative. So it's like, there's like a choral organization with a instrumental one and they want to get together. And so it's
And I
just
think
interesting how that came about.
for us, again, I will reiterate that if there was not another source of funding, we would not make this recommendation.
Right.
And if between now and when we consider these things, we get word from council that we're off base, these will just be moved into the bigger group. So in no way will these be discriminated against due to our lack of understanding of that second source of funding.
Could we still keep them in a bucket so that we can prioritize where we want to talk about them?
Certainly, yeah.
Good.
And I think it's just, especially with K-12 programming in general, it could be easier to look at them all together rather than trying to match them together with some
I agree.
That's helpful.
programming or whatever.
Any other comments on youth programming? All right, thumbs up, thumbs down? Separate bucket for youth programming? Okay, we're there. So I believe that left us with 4. Was there? Yes.
Are there many churches? Should churches go in a bucket?
There's 2 churches, because the one from last year came back and then we have another one.
I like to think of them together.
First to you, Heartburn.
My only concern with doing that is and I'm trying to channel Reed, our city attorney. I think he would consider those in the nonprofit bucket, or the nonprofit bucket as opposed to, breaking them out separate from that not-for-profit. We wouldn't do that with any other groupings within that category, I don't think. What do you think, Dennis?
I have similar reach. No pun
Thank you. I'd be hesitant without running it by the city attorney. I think that's what he would say, though, is
Yeah, there's two churches.
the bucketing would be not for profit. It's comfort. I can check.
I like the nonprofit and profit, and I like those buckets. I think that they should just remain in the nonprofit.
So here's the buckets that we've identified. Not serving Littleton. For-profit organizations. Murals. Youth programming. Everybody else. So with those in mind, what order do you want to consider them? Denise, do you want to go first?
Oh, put me to the fire. After everybody else. I like murals next because I do think it's part of the fabric of our community. Followed by youth only because we have other opportunities for them this year. Then for-profit and not benefiting Littleton would be my last bucket.
So
That would be my personal priority,
so you'd be
bringing them back in.
everybody else,
Everybody else first,
Then
murals,
murals,
youth,
youth.
for-profit, and then not serving Littleton.
I would agree with that too.
Only devil's advocate was a comment I made last year, which was if we don't incentivize them, they won't come. So I think there's good programming that's outside of Littleton.
We're basing this off of their programming. We believe that we got much better marketing for this grant application.
Okay.
And I'm gonna make this up. But if Miners Alley and Golden applied for an arts and culture grant from Littleton to serve Miners Alley and Golden, that's what we're talking about.
Got it.
Not
The
if
programming is not associated with Littleton.
if their programming is associated with Littleton, if they're saying we are gonna, if it's clear, and I'm looking again for.
Yeah,
Throw something at me.
not in Little, not.
It's
in Littleton,
clear
not
saying
serving.
we wanna come to Littleton and serve here.
She said that earlier, sorry.
Yeah.
I messed
No,
up.
good question.
No, it's
a great-
and that's.
But you're right, because it is a draw, and that's part of when I think about my buckets. We're starting to get known for our murals. That's why in my mind, that's the next one to go in. It's hard to prioritize. I think that we're gonna see a lot of really great applicants. But I do also think that this will help us with the process. Last year it was all learning for everybody. And I think that the feedback that everybody had was kind of guiding us towards this approach. And who knows? I mean, after we try it this way, maybe we refine it. We'll be refining it every year, to be honest with you, but we'll dive in deeper maybe to different buckets. But I think this is a really good start after our first go around.
So, and I was gonna go around the circle, but let me offer this. Any orders other than everybody, murals, youth, for-profit, not serving Littleton? Any other order suggestion that anybody wants to put on the table?
I'd prefer youth over murals, but
Okay,
that's
I
just
could
me.
probably go either way on that, yeah. But the
Yeah, I
bottom two
could see
are
that
correct.
too. I could see youth before murals too.
And I'd be happy with that as well. I just was thinking that we had another.
That could be.
Source.
That actually might lend itself, particularly if we find out that the stadium funding is not gonna be, wouldn't be available. It would be easy then to move the youth ones right into the initial batch too, if they're the first priority
Everybody else's.
afterwards. But we can do it however the board wants.
any other orders? So let me do this and let's see if we land on something. Option 1 is everybody else, murals, youth, for-profit, not serving Littleton. Option 2 is everybody, youth, murals, for-profit, not serving Littleton. I'm gonna go ahead and do a show of hands if you want option 1. murals over youth.
When you put it like that.
That assumes think that the youth funding is-
All of this
Yeah.
assumes that Broncos funding is an option for them.
All right, so that's me.
Then that's
Assuming that, yes.
Oh, okay.
Okay, I don't care then, doesn't matter.
Okay.
Keep your hands up.
They're gonna have other funding somewhere else. It doesn't
Thank
matter.
you.
That's my thought too.
5, 6, 7, okay.
Are the buckets are the bucket sizes about the same for the for-profit and not in Littleton? Are they big buckets? Or can we consolidate those like into one bucket? Like,
I think we're okay.
okay.
I'd keep them separate.
I dare
They
say
aren't-
we're
they
far
aren't
enough down the
very-
road, not turn around. Votes for option 2, youth before murals.
Okay.
Okay, so do you have any questions, staff, about what we are expecting at our July meeting? Do you know what
I'm clear.
we're anticipating?
I'm
Clear.
You okay?
Yeah, yeah, and my goal, like I said, is to have hard copies available of everything and a nice binder for you the first week in June. At the same time,
Oh, I
I'll
thought
send
you
out,
said that it was gonna be online.
it'll be both.
Oh, so we
Yeah.
could come pick it up and.
But
shoot?
unless you want to scroll through on your phone or a computer, you probably will want to print out of all of these.
So then we
Oh,
would
that'd
come
be
in here
nice.
to pick it up?
Yeah.
or-
Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
great.
that'd be nice,
You just
yeah.
come here to the museum.
Yeah.
And
At the dinner.
up until the
Oh, yeah.
moment before the pizza boxes are opened, we can get a ruling on the stadium funding.
Yeah.
And change it.
Yeah, I did talk to the executive assistant in the city manager's office yesterday, and she said that she would try to expedite it through the council, so.
So, and we may not report back to you, that may be a night of decision where you find out where that falls.
Yeah, and the other thing I want to just mention to everyone too is that based on feedback from last year, we are planning on having universal score sheet for everyone to use rather than you all having to come up with your own method.
Very good.
Awesome. Well, this will either be brilliant or a total disaster. We'll find out. That is the end of our new business. We can do a quick roundtable and then call it a night. Denise, anything for the good of the group?
Nothing to add, but the night with Edgar Allan Poe that you had at the library was phenomenal. Please do more of those. Programming.
Thank you.
I'm terrified for July, thank you.
Baltimore
I'm gonna
was
bring a
hot and humid
blanket.
yesterday.
What's that?
Baltimore was hot and humid yesterday.
Yeah, I saw that. It is supposed to be cooler next week, but it is also supposed to be rainy, so I'm expecting 95% humidity.
Yeah, I just flew in, so.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I looked at it yesterday and it was hot.
You haven't seen anything until you had to take notes, like
Jenny did
Jenny
it.
last year.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Jen,
It
Nana.
was
Do it again if I had.
nothing else to add.
Michelle?
Saw Red down at Town Hall this past weekend, the final performance. I thought it was brilliant. It was a lot of fun. Thought it was a really cool examination of the arts life. So that was really good. And I did go to the ACC, the pottery coach for Katie's group that was over at Aspen Grove here a couple
Oh,
weeks ago,
nice.
and it was really cool.
Oh, that,
So,
There's so much to do.
there it is.
Staff, anything else?
One quick thing, we are planning to do dinner again for you at the July meeting, so dinner will be available at 5 o'clock. I think JD's planning to start at 5:30. We'll send out a menu for orders and 7:47 in the first, 00 absent stars.
For that important update.
My really quick plugs are, remember to do the Project Downtown survey by Monday if you haven't. 3 options being presented and it may be a blend of those, so opinions matter. As she mentioned, reach out to Gretchen and talk to her about anything that's on your mind related to arts or culture or otherwise. She is a council member and you can contact her at any point. I did want to do 2 quick plugs. Number one is Friends of the Library and Museum is an outstanding organization that supports the library and Edgar Allan Poe activities as well as the museum. If you're not plugged into that group, please consider doing so. Their summer concert series launches shortly. And another plug for Historic Littleton Inc. Their walking tours of downtown and Littleton Boulevard are gonna kick up in the summer, and they're gonna do a cool scavenger hunt with Western Welcome Week. So if you wanna plug into the historic architecture of Littleton Boulevard and or downtown, that is the group to plug into. June is the boards and commissions dinner. I believe invitations have gone out. So
Just got
if
mine
you,
today.
if you don't know what I'm talking about and you don't in the next couple days, call Tim. Ethics, what are we signing?
Your ethics statement
Ethics
page, you have a
statement
signature
page.
page on the back.
You need the page or the packet?
Just need the page.
And then 5 o'clock meeting start or 5:30 meeting in July. Feed you first.
And obviously no meeting in.
No, it's on this very night in June. Why we don't get to meet. With that, at 8:17, we will adjourn the meeting. Thank you all so very, very much.
Job.